Hello dear viewers, welcome to Mr.Zoologist YouTube channel. Today we are going to discuss about nervous system, its components in detail. So what is the nervous system? Basically nervous system is a type of a coordination system. Coordination is actually a coordinated response of an organism as a whole towards any kind of stimulus or a signal that can be either external or internal. So basically there are two types of coordination systems. One is endocrine system and the second one is the nervous system. Endocrine system is run by endocrine glands which excrete hormones which are chemical messengers, whereas nervous system works on the basis of the neurons or neuronal cell bodies. So in detail we are going to look upon the anatomy and physiology of the nervous system. If we talk about the nervous system anatomic parts, it has two anatomic parts. The first one is the central nervous system. Its abbreviation is CNS, and the second component is peripheral nervous system, that is also abbreviated as PNS. And if you look upon this diagram, you will come to know that when we talk about CNS, central nervous system, there comes two its component subparts in our mind. That first one is the brain and the second one is the spinal cord. Whereas when we talk about the PNS, peripheral nervous system, there comes associated two types, it's two subtypes, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. In actual, central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord. The brain controls the body and is also the center of consciousness. When your brain works properly, then you are said to be mature enough to make your own decisions and not considered as immature. Whereas brain is divided into three major areas: cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. These are the three major areas you are going to look upon. And if you talk about the CNS major parts, as you can see in the diagram, and the facing part of our face that is made up of frontal lobe. In actual, brain has four lobes. Our brain has four lobes, that is frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobe. These are the four lobes of our brain. And cerebrum and brainstem are the components of our brain types. In actual, our brain has three parts, three components: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Cerebrum is a part of forebrain, that is the largest part of our brain, and brainstem is actually the part of the midbrain that is reduced in humans, and cerebellum is the last part of our brain that is also called as hindbrain. And then our hindbrain is connected with the spinal cord with the help of cerebrospinal fluid that helps to maintain the pressure that comes on our brain when a bump is hit on the head. And if we talk about the cerebrum, that controls a wide variety of activities including most voluntary motor function and conscious thoughts. It contains about 75% of the brain's total volume, means to say that is the largest part of our brain, as I have told you earlier, divided into two hemispheres with four lobes. We have discussed these four lobes in the diagram: frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital lobes. And if you talk about cerebellum, it coordinates balance and body movements, whereas brainstem controls most functions necessary for life. Most primitive part of the central nervous system is brainstem, and best protected part of the central nervous system is also brainstem, that is between two parts of the brain, and like that of forebrain and hindbrain. There comes a central part that is also known as brainstem or midbrain. And if we talk about spinal cord, that is made up of fibers that extend from the brain's nerve cells, carries messages between the brain and the body via the gray matter and white matter of the spinal cord. In actual, gray matter and white matter are the components of the spinal cord that are associated with particular functioning. And if we talk about protective coverings, the entire central nervous system is contained within a protective framework. Either it is spinal cord, and even if we talk about the brain is covered with meninges, we will discuss it later, and spinal cord is covered with vertebral column. The thick bony structures of the skull and spinal canal withstand injury very well. Means to say, when you face any kind of injury, your body has protective coverings around your these sensitive parts. Meninges. These are outer layer, also known as dura mater, is a tough fibrous layer that forms a sac to contain the central nervous system. Inner two layers, which are also known as arachnoid and pia mater, contain the blood vessels. Cerebrospinal fluid produced in a chamber inside the brain, also called as the thick third ventricle. Approximately, it is of size of 125 to 150 ml in the brain at one time. Primarily acts as a shock absorber. Means to say, as I have told you earlier, that CSF helps you to bear the bump when you hit either on a vehicle or on a road. And if we talk about the PNS, previously we have discussed all about the CNS. Now we are going to discuss about the PNS, peripheral nervous system. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. These conduct impulses from skin and other organs to the spinal cord. They conduct motor impulses from the spinal cord to the muscles. The spinal nerves serving the extremities are arranged in a complex networks. As you can see in the diagram, that these all are the structures associated with the PNS. 12 pairs of cranial nerves present. These transmit information directly to or from the brain. Cranial is basically associated with cranium. Cranium is a protective covering around your skull. So that performs special functions in the head and face, including sight, smell, taste, hearing, and facial expressions are brought about these nerves. These nerves actually control all these happenings in our body, like that of looking around, smelling around, tasting around, and hearing, and also facial expressions of anger and love, or either some else. There are two types of peripheral nerves. These may include sensory nerves, which carry only one type of information from the body to the brain by the spinal cord. Sensory nerves are only associated with sensing the changes in the either in the external or internal environment of the human or some other animal. Whereas motor nerves, one for each muscle, carry information from the central nervous system to the muscle. Motor nerves never ever carry messages from sensory organs to the CNS components like brain and spinal cord. They just carry information away from these parts like brain and spinal cord towards glands or muscles. And if we talk about the connecting nerves, they are also act as found only in the brain and spinal cord. These are also called as mixed or associative nerves. They allow the exchange of simple messages. They also help to sort out the information, either it is for CNS or PNS. How the nervous system works, that is also our topic of discussion today. It also controls virtually all the body's activities, which may include reflex activities or either voluntary activities which are in our control, in our brain control or spinal cord, or either involuntary activities, they might not be in our control. So, like if we talk about voluntary actions, our muscular actions are voluntary actions, whereas involuntary actions are not in our body control, like that of sneezing, heartbeat, and also breathing. These are involuntary activities, we cannot control them. And if we talk about connecting nerves in the spinal cord forms a reflex arc. If a sensory nerve in this arc detects an irritating stimulus, if a stimulus irritates or disrupts the system, it bypasses the brain and sends the message directly to a motor nerve. Means to say, without inferring results, a direct instruction is sent to the muscles or glands to produce an abrupt response. That forms a reflex arc. That is a pathway followed by a nerve impulse. That is also called as reflex arc. Autonomic nervous system handles body functions which can be divided into two parts like sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. In actually, sympathetic nervous system reacts to stress with a fight or flight response. Either you decide to fight in a situation, or you can also escape from the situation or flight. Like that, if a dog is running behind you, you can fight with it, or you can run away from the situation. It depends upon your accessibilities. Next is parasympathetic nervous system has the opposite effect on the body. Means to say that cools down your body after the emergency situation it acts. Parasympathetic nervous system acts after the emergency situation has finished.